Okay, welcome to Tip Tuesday. Hope you're having a great week. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the difference between attaching a band or a binding flat versus in the round. This might be a term that you come across in the sewing world, and I just went searching for a video to embed in one of my blog posts the other day, and I couldn't come up with one that explained it very well. So I thought I'd go ahead and do my own. What you're going to do, if you're attaching something flat, it gives you a little bit of extra control. There are a lot of different fabrics that you could be using for a pattern. Oftentimes, a pattern will say this is suitable for French terry or rayon spandex or cotton lycra. Well, right there you've got three fabrics with a very different thickness, with different stretches, with different amounts of recovery. So you want to kind of have as much control as you can to avoid having your armholes and your neck openings be too gathered because the band was too short, or be gaping because the band was too long. So attaching a neckband or binding in the flat can kind of help with some of those issues. Now what you're going to do if you're attaching it flat, you're going to sew the shoulder seams of your top, and this is if you're attaching the armholes flat. If you were attaching the neckline flat, you would actually just sew one shoulder closed, and you would leave the other open so that you could then attach it in a C shape instead of an O shape. For the armholes of this tank top, I'm going to do those flat to demonstrate. And so what I've done is I've gone ahead and inserted that shoulder seam, and I've pressed the seam toward the back of the top. And then I've gotten my band piece, because in this case I'm using a band, and I fold it in half, wrong sides together, just like you would do. But instead of sewing those short ends together, like you would do if you were making a circle out of it, I'm leaving those open. Now I'm using a piece that is longer than I think that I'm going to need. Typically your band's going to be about 80% of your opening, but I'm making mine longer than that so that I can control that stretch as I sew it on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to the bottom of my armhole, and I'm going to start serging it on. And as I serge it, I'm going to be, or sew it if you're using a sewing machine, which is totally doable, I'm going to be pulling on the band. I'm not going to be pulling on the top. So the band's going to be on top as I serge it on, and then I'm going to be pulling slightly. When you're doing a racer back top especially, but really any kind of top with arm bands, you want to make sure that the most of your pulling is happening down here. Okay? You don't want to be pulling hardly at all up here by the shoulder seam. If you do, you'll end up with kind of bunchy shoulders. You might have noticed that on some of your tops or in some photos. If you pull too much along either side of that shoulder seam, it tends to bunch up. So if you just kind of concentrate most of your pulling, and again, this is something you kind of have to learn by feel, but you want to pull it, just kind of gently. And that, again, it does depend somewhat on your fabric, but along here and then along here. So I'm going to go over to my serger. I'm going to do that, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've serged that band on right sides together, just kind of tugging gently as I went along the bottom of the arm side. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fold it over, and I'm going to be careful about matching here. You don't want that seam to be off, even though it's under your armpit. It's nice to have it match. So I usually stick a pin there, but I pin those right sides together, trim off any extra that you've got, hanging off here. And then I go ahead and sew down my side seam. So that's attaching in the flat. Now, what about attaching in the round? Let me get my top situated back here. I'm going to demonstrate that on this one with the neck opening. So I've got my neck opening in a big round circle. Got both of those shoulder seams sewn, and I've taken my tape measure and I've run it along the seam line. You want to make sure to do on the seam line so you get an accurate measurement of this pattern. And I've come up with a measurement, and I've multiplied that by, in this case, about 80%, which I feel like is a good match for this type of fabric. And then I'm going to take that piece that I've cut here And I'm going to sew the short ends right sides together. So I'm going to go ahead and take that over to my serger and sew along this short edge using the seam allowance that I calculated in when I did the band measurement, which for me, in this case, I used 1/4 inches. I just don't like to waste the fabric, so that's what I do. Sew that at 1/4 inches, and then I've got a round circle that matches the opening here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've sewn that neckband piece, the short ends, right sides together. Now I did it with a serger, but in a previous Tip Tuesday I showed you how if you do it with your sewing machine and press those seam allowances open, you'll end up with a lot flatter spot here. Unfortunately, my sewing machine is still sick. It's still in the shop, so I'm using my serger. But I've also gone ahead and quartered the neck opening, and I've quartered my band. That's something that you save yourself from doing when you attach flat. But in this case, if I'm going to attach in the round, I need to make sure that the stretch is fairly even all around. Again, I'm going to try to avoid stretching it too much along these shoulder seams. I'm going to use most of the stretch in this curved part of the neck opening and along, a little bit along the upper back so that that hugs your neck in those spots. So I'm going to go ahead and serge that on, and you'll see how that looks. There won't be any, sewing of the shoulder seams to do afterwards because we've done it in the round. Okay, I finished serging on my neckband in the round. Now there were some spots where I felt like, oh gosh, I'm having to pull a little bit too much here. It doesn't seem to have gathered too much. I think any steaming and top stitching is going to take care of any little spots. That's something you have a little bit more control over when you attach flat. So, that's just another method to keep in mind, attaching flat versus attaching in the round. I hope this video has been helpful for you. If it has, go ahead and share it, leave a comment. You can like my page on Facebook so that you stay connected and for more Tip Tuesdays and Fail Fridays. Have a good day.